Hi, I'm Deb Crowe, and I want to welcome you to Season 3 of Imperfect, the Heart-Centered Leadership Podcast. This is a podcast where we connect, learn, and laugh together with authentic and courageous leaders from all over the globe. You will learn from leaders you haven't even met yet. You will gain new tools to add to your leadership toolkit. Leadership belongs to all of us. It's not measured by stature or title. So please pull up a chair and listen in. This is the Heart-Centered Leadership Podcast. Well, I can't believe it's the end of September, and I am joyously back doing my solo episodes on the last Friday of the month, and wanted to tell some stories today and share a little bit of what's been going on since my last solo episode, which I believe was in June. It might have even been May. We went dark in June and we were supposed to be back in July. And I unfortunately became ill. So that's what I want to talk to you about today is how do we plan, adapt, respond when things happen in our life? Because if we don't have our health, we have nothing. So I tend to believe and live a healthy lifestyle, regular exercising, eating healthy, lots of self-care, lots of time to think and be, maybe some time on my yoga mat, maybe some meditation. But then I found out the second week of June that I was sick, and it was a really difficult time. My husband wasn't allowed to come to the hospital. I was having every blood test, every scan, and I was in and out of the hospital 3 times, and they couldn't tell us what was wrong. They thought I had meningitis, then I didn't have meningitis, and then they thought I had COVID, and I didn't have COVID. And then the summation was, you have a virus, and we don't know what it is, so go home and go to bed. So trying to process that, and then trying to think, what do I say to my clients in this moment? What do I say? And as I laid in bed, feeling probably the worst I've ever felt in my life, I thought transparency, vulnerability, everything you represent, everything you talk about, everything you coach. And I was so weak that I couldn't even call all my clients. And I have clients in 7 different countries, different time zones. So I asked my daughter if she would email and phone all of my clients and tell them that I was sick and she was calling on my behalf. And that's literally all I could do in the moment. And then, of course, my habits of thinking brought me down the rabbit hole. And I started thinking everything negative. And then I couldn't even stay in that space because I was so weak. And all I wanted to focus on was sleeping and being and doing what I needed to do for myself in the moment. And it was so interesting because I was down and out for most of the summer. Even though mid-July brought some joy to our family with a new granddaughter named Eleanor, I still didn't have the energy to fully immerse myself and enjoy the moment fully, but I did the best I could with the time I had and with the strength and energy that I had. So when I started returning to work after Labor Day, I had to put my own medical case management hat back on and integrate myself on a transitional return to work. Slow but steady over a period of time, and giving myself 6 weeks to fully immerse myself back in it, but making some hard decisions that were actually easy and full of joy. For example, I said to my team, when we come back with the podcast in August, we're going to do just Fridays right now. We're going to let Wednesdays go, and that's okay. Because it's so important that we manage our energy. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute and what that really means. So we came back every Friday. I also removed the pressure and the obligation as an entrepreneur to post every day on social media. And I cannot tell you how freeing that has been to not post every day and post when I feel inspired or I want to say something. So I paused, I gave myself grace, I gave myself lots of self-care, and I realized that we have to sometimes pause and live in that moment, even when life hands us surprises. And there's what I call unplanned success. There's things that will happen that are out of our control. And we have to look at our overall vitality. And I really love the work that's been adapted from Jim Lohr and Tony Schwartz around vitality and energy management. And when we look at energy, there's particularly 4 quadrants that are so important. Our physical energy, the quantity. Did you get enough sleep last night? Are you eating nutritious meals? Are you moving and having regular exercise? And do you work in short, high power bursts? I like to call them power sessions. You know, you set that intention for the day of the 3 things that you're going to get done, and it's non-negotiable. The second quotient is emotional energy, the quality of emotional energy. Are you breathing? Do you take time out of your day, that white space that I talk about all the time, and give yourself space to be and take 6 diaphragmatic deep breaths? Do you invest in giving and receiving positive feedback? Are you avoiding negative environments and people? And most importantly, do you make time for family and friends? The next quadrant is mental energy, which is focus. How are you doing when it comes to reducing constant interruptions? Do you prioritize your workload? And are you adopting what they refer to as realistic optimism? And then the last quadrant is spiritual energy, the force. Have you defined a clear sense of purpose in work and in your life? And do you have the courage to live by your values? And the most important one is practicing self-care. This energy management chart I have shared with all of my executives, and it's interesting because I've now moved 70 executives since March of 2020. They've either taken a demotion, they've moved laterally to a similar company in the same sector, or they've completely got out of leadership and followed their heart, or they've completely changed sectors and done something and packed up their transferable skills to join them and start to have more joy in their life. So it's very interesting, the conversations that I had in August as I slowly was starting to talk to people again, and even being back and putting in this solo podcast episode into my workflow day as I transition back. And it's like all of you listening that have children or grandchildren, it's really important that you allow and give yourself that grace period of September and half of October, that 6-week transitional phase in time, because we're all coming off the summer and we're going back to routine and structure. And in order to have routine and structure, we need to have that behavior of discipline. And I think it's welcomed. And I've heard a lot of people say it, and I join the people that have said it. September to me is like the new year. Even though from a calendar perspective, January is the start of a new year, for me, it's always been September. And I don't know where that derived from, but it just feels that we're leaning into a new season. You know, from a business acumen point of view, it's Q4. It's the last quarter of the year. It's the last hurrah to finish those goals that we set earlier in the year, or maybe we modified them, or maybe we're going to defer some to next year. Whatever that is for you, that's okay. The point is that sometimes we just have to hit the pause button. And in my case, it wasn't something I did voluntarily, but I got the message, and I'm now going to be more intentful, because my word for this year is 2022. I'm going to be more intentful for what I want to do, when I want to do it, who I want to do it with, and allow myself to be even more. So it's almost like I'm taking a little pressure off, because it's very easy for us to do that as entrepreneurs. And I'm working on some new things that I'm excited about. And I'm just going to take my time and allow it to unveil. So I want to welcome you back to Imperfect, the Heart-Centered Leadership podcast. I'm very excited to be in season 3. I'm super excited that we've now passed 200 leaders. And I don't take that lightly, because I remember when I started in May of 2020. And I didn't have any expectations. I just wanted to have meaningful, beautiful conversations. I wanted to highlight different leaders across the globe. I wanted to bring laughter to imperfection. I wanted to share the commonality of the imperfections that we all have, and just really create community with no expectation, and of course, not the ability or the need or the want for reciprocity. Just an energy exchange without transaction is my hope for the continuation of this global community in this amazing podcast. And if you're new to us, welcome. We are not on anybody's top 10 list, and our listenership has grown to 65 countries. And I don't take that lightly either. So we're known, but as I joke and use candor and humor, there's a certain level of obscurity, but it's lovely to know that people are tuning in from far and wide and across the globe. So I'm going to sign off for September of 2022 and remind you that heart-centered leadership is honoring your connection with people. Till next time. Thanks for joining me today on Imperfect, the Heart-Centered Leadership podcast. I hope that you've enjoyed the show today and learned some new tools for your leadership from our amazing heart-centered guest. And if you like the show, we would welcome a rating and review on whatever platform you listen to. And we would love to have any comments or feedback at any time. And if you want some more heart-centered goodness, head over to our daily blog, masteringtheheart.com.